A budget scotch that's always out of stock? How good can it be? Hello and welcome back to the channel, and yes, today I'm taking a look at this. It's called Nevis Dew. This is the Blue Label edition, and it is a blended Scotch whisky produced by, sold by, exported out of the Ben Nevis Distillery. Because it is a blend and not all of the whiskies that go into it came from the Ben Nevis Distillery. It doesn't actually say it on the front here, but yeah, they kind of did all of the legwork. What is particularly interesting about this though is that it is a very budget friendly Scotch whisky from a pretty well renowned distillery who incidentally almost always have all of their stuff out of stock. There is a reason for that and we'll get into it shortly. And it's a blend, and you know, it shouldn't really meet the criteria of something fantastic, and well, you'll notice that there's a bit gone out of this bottle already, and that is because I was enjoying this on my holidays a few weeks ago, incidentally right by the Ben Nevis Distillery. So it's possible that my feelings toward this at the time were influenced by the fact that I was basically drinking it where it was designed, where it was meant to be drank, and the fact that I was on holiday, so everything was just better anyway. But today we're going to find out for sure, is this Nevis Dew really worth the budget-friendly hype it has acquired? So what is that budget-friendly number? Well, honestly, £22 to £30. That is supermarket tap territory. Let's be completely honest about that. Not that there's not some good ones in the supermarket at that price, because there are, but also it's in a supermarket. That pushes the price down. I picked this up in a boutique bottle shop in Fort William down the road from the distillery for 25 or 26 quid. I'll be honest, I can't actually remember, but about that anyway. And yeah, it's a funny thing. It doesn't look particularly expensive, it has to be said. I think you could easily glance past it, but well, I've got a little confession to make. And that is, despite having spent probably in the realm of 4 to 5 months of my life over the last 10 years in Fort William, I've never been to the distillery, that is still true, but I've never even tasted one of their whiskies, which is, well, it's just rude, frankly, isn't it? Let's be honest. But the reason for that is because, well, the distillery, I don't really have a good excuse for. It's always just been I go a lot so I can go anytime kind of thing. As a result, have never been. But the reason I've never tried any of their whiskies before is because they are almost always out of stock, this one included. Now, I was lucky enough last time I went up to come away with 2 bottles of Ben Nevis Distillery products. One is an actual Ben Nevis Distillery single malt, and then this one, the Nevis Dew blend. The reason though that they are always out of stock so often is simply because they are owned by a Japanese whiskey company who incidentally buys all of their whiskey from themselves, ships it over to Japan, mixes it with a teaspoon of actual Japanese whiskey, bottles it and calls it Japanese whiskey, which has been an allowed practice up until this year, but that is no longer the case. So what will be interesting to see is whether they continue to ship all of it out to Japan, kind of rename it so that it meets their new legal legislation, or whether we're going to start to see it popping up just a little bit more in our shops here in the UK. And as I say, based on my experience so far, I hope the latter is the case. Just before we break into it then, a quick look at the bottle. It's very reflective, so it's quite difficult to deal with here in the light of the studio. There is a picture on the front of it there. I don't know if it's ever going to make it out, but basically it is a kind of pastel watercolour of Ben Nevis itself. That looks like it's been taken from the south side, I want to say, but I could be mistaken. But anyway, it's it's a fairly, it's nice, but it's a bit nondescript. Like, you could easily be fooled in thinking this was a cheap whiskey, which, well, it is, but I don't think it tastes like it is. There is some info on the back which we might get a chance to look at a little bit later, but yeah, let's get one poured. Now, no cork on this one because cheapness. In the glass then, it's pretty light, but again, it's a blend. I suspect it's non-chill filtered, but I don't think it actually tells us. No, it just says distilled and bottled in Scotland. So it is all Scotch in there, but that's about all we know for sure. There could be some colouring, I really don't know, but I don't think so, based just on the way it looks. It's not the lightest out there by any means, but it's certainly not properly dark either. A bit of a yellowy hue to it. There are some legs on the glass actually, which again, I'm quite surprised at. This is coming in at 40% on the nose. So this is, again, it's budget ABV as well, 80 proof, and well, all the stats don't point in its favour to being particularly good until you try it, or at least that's what I think is going to happen. So let's give it a go, shall we? The aromas, straight away, it's got this nice, chewy, sweet bite to it. Like, it feels quite full-bodied. And got that crunchy chocolate bar, honeycomb, vanilla, a few spices in there, a few grassy notes, lemongrass, maybe a bit of citrus as well. Like, got a bit of a soft iodine-y twang to me, but it is really, really soft. But just the aroma, even just taking away the actual notes of it, it doesn't feel thin, doesn't feel cheap, it doesn't feel overly, well, let's be honest, ethanol-y. It doesn't feel like it's from, you know, let's say the bad cuts of whiskey, basically. It's really, yeah, it's got a lot of body and just a lot of character. It feels very nice indeed. Right, let's give it a go, shall we? Cheers. It's sweet, it's fresh, zingy, balanced. And that is ultimately almost always the thing that really, really matters. You go through this and it changes up and down, and it's not the most intense, it's not the most diverse range of flavours. But those flavours that are in there, they just work incredibly, incredibly well together. It's I can see why it's no longer in stock. Well, why it's no longer in stock. Why it's very rarely in stock, because that is undoubtedly the best 20 to 30 quid dram of Scotch I think I've ever had. There are a couple that I guess when they come on offer might start to rival it, but even then, I still think I'm going to be choosing this. So what am I waffling on about in terms of flavours then? Well, let's pick it apart, shall we? Right on the tip of the tongue. Bit grassy, sweet lemon, right on the tip there. That's a really nice combo, actually. It's gone away from the more, I guess, astringent lemongrass of the aroma and has become something distinctly sweet and fresh at the same time. Over the mid palate, lemon continues, gets less sweet, a few spicy edges in there. It's not really peppery, but kind of a bit cinnamony maybe. Kind of winter spice profile along with the lemon. Works beautifully, really, really nice. Then over the back of the palate, the lemon is a recurring theme, and when you just take a single sip of this, like, you can tell it's in there, but I don't think you quite realise how persistent it is until you start to pick it apart. Lemon again, we're going back into sweeter this time. It's got, well, just the addition of a few softer notes, a bit of vanilla perhaps, a bit cakey, you know, vanilla cake, lemon cake, there you go, sweet lemon cake of some sort. It is really in there, very nice indeed. And then on the aftertaste, more intense fruit, a bit plummy perhaps, the lemon's starting to chill out a bit, getting a more noticeable earthy, maybe stone fruit, more spices coming through, bit more peppery this time, but still very much in that winter spice arena. And actually it leaves your palate remarkably chill. Like, there's still a few things spritzing around at the back there, but I'm immediately ready just to go in for another sip. It really is quite special, that. Yes, it's a blend, it's only 40%, it's dirt cheap to buy. I don't know whether the cheapness is kind of making it more endearing to me, because I do love a bargain, but I don't know, I feel like if you throw up most 50 quid bottles of Scotch against it, a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people still go, yeah, I kind of dig in this. It's so well balanced. It's so, I think easy is the word. It's easy without being boring. Fantastic starter Scotch, should you be able to get your hands on one. But yeah, I really am digging it. Let's take a quick look at this bottle to see if we can glean any more information. As I said at the start, this is the Blue Label. They do some other variants, and I believe this used to be called the Dew of Ben Nevis, but they didn't like him using the word Ben Nevis because that's the distillery name and because they didn't make all the whiskey that goes in it. No idea who makes the rest of it, by the way. No information out there, so hard to say. But Nevis Dew Blue Label, blended Scotch whisky, distilled and bottled in Scotland. The proprietors are Ben Nevis Distillery, Fort William. And on the back it goes on to say, as part of the Scotch Whisky Regulations 2008, it is no longer possible for us to refer to our blends as the Dew of Ben Nevis. as I was just saying, unless all of the constituent parts of the blend have been produced at the distillery. As our Blue Label blend contains not only Ben Nevis malt, but also grain and malt whiskies, interesting, from other distillers, we have had to rebrand and most of our other blends as Nevis Dew. We believe that the Dew of Ben Nevis name originated when Donald P. MacDonald, fantastic name, sold his malt whiskies under the brand name of Long John's Celebrated Dew of Ben Nevis sometime around the mid-1800s. I mean, safe to say they've got history. The distillery was established in 1825. And it goes on to say, despite the change in name, and this is the only change, you can be assured that the whiskey contained within the bottle is exactly the same award-winning blend as before. That is a good point. This is a multi-award-winning whiskey, so it's a it's considered pretty highly in terms of blends. Interesting that it's also got grain whiskey in it as well as single malts. But it doesn't matter for me. It is balanced, it is sweet, it is approachable, it is actually a very good summertime scotch. In my head, I want to drink the deep brooding scotches in winter, then turn over to the American stuff for summer because I feel like it makes a bit more sense sometimes. But that is an absolutely beautiful summer dram, and as you can see, I've nearly finished it. So, well, we should probably wrap it up here. That really is all I've got to say about it. If you get a chance to get one, I strongly recommend it because, again, despite the low price, despite the appearance, despite the ABV, it's still pretty fantastic. So yeah, and that really is all I've got to say about it now. So as always, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. If you haven't already, subscribe if you will be so kind, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.